Hi class. Right now this is going to serve as checking your mid-unit assessment, okay? If you can check your mid-unit assessment and you're competent to be able to perform all the fraction operations, you should do amazing on your unit test, okay? Our objective is the students will be able to check their mid-unit assessment in order to properly assess on their unit on fraction operations. So, okay, our mid-unit, we're going to go ahead and hopefully we are properly assessed, so meaning we'll get a good grade on our unit on fraction operations, okay? First, we need to identify fractions before we can even do any operations on them. So the first thing is, well, let's look at the number one. Number one, we notice that the fraction we could write is 3, and then out of how many? Out of 4. Remember, this is the first lesson we did. Okay, how many out of the denominator is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so out of 6, how much out of 6? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 out of 6 that are represented as this fraction. Okay. So the first two questions asks you to put it in its lowest form. And I always would suggest for us to, when we do this, to see if the smaller number evenly divides into the big one. So we're going to go ahead and factor first. And does 18 fit into 90? Well, I know 18 divided by 18 is 1. Okay. But what is 90 divided by 18? Okay. If we use a calculator or if we can go ahead and figure that out, then it's 5. Now, then what is my fraction that I am left with? I am left with 1 over 5. Okay. Again, dividing the smallest into the biggest number is the quickest way to see if you can factor. Now, sometimes that's not always going to be the case. So let's look at 35 over 40. It's asking you to put in lowest terms. Or other words, simplify, okay? So we're going to take 35 and we're going to take 40 and we're going to factor. Well, remember our divisibility that 5 and 0, okay, needs to be divisible, can be divisible by 5, okay? So we know that 35 divided by 5 is 7, and we know that 40 divided by 5 is 8. So we have our fraction as 7 over 8. Okay, so the next part is asking us to put our fractions in order from least to greatest. Okay, so that is the smallest to the greatest. Well, we can look at 1/2, 1/5, and 1/10. And we can say, well, I know 1/2 is the biggest, that out of 1/5, if I were to divide it up, think of if I were to divide it up into like a pizza or a pie, I would know that 1/2 would be the biggest, 1/10 would be the smallest. But how could we empirically find out that what order these fractions can go in from least to greatest? Well, let's see. First thing we notice we can do is we can factor to get them all common denominators, and that is really key, guys. So I know we can factor 1/5 and 1/10. Well, we know we can get 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Right now we cross multiply. Times 1 times 1. We get 1/10 down here. And then we got to cross multiply over here. Times 2 times 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 10th. Now we bring down the 1/2. Now wait a minute. The 1/2 is different in terms of a denominator. So how do we make that denominator the same? Well, we just simply cross multiply each denominators. We bring over each denominators, we multiply the top and the bottom. So we're going to take 10, 2 times 10, 1 times 10. And we're going to take the 2 over here. 2 times 2. Okay. And if we have 1 times 10 and 2 times 10, we have 10. 1 times 10 is 10 over 20. 2 times 2 is 4 over 20. 2 times 1 is 2 over 20. And we should notice this is the smallest. It's the next biggest. This is the biggest. So what were those numbers to start off with? Well, we know that if we assign them a number, that 1/10 is the smallest, then 1/5 is the next, and then 1/2 is the biggest. And the way we can do that is by making a common denominator, and we can definitely tell by then which of the fractions are ordered from least to greatest. So let's look at this simple word problem. All right, Katie bikes 5/8 of a kilometer to school and walks 1/8 miles. How far does she ride in total? In total, well, we know total is one of our keywords. So we know that we're adding here. So what are we adding? Well, it says that she bikes 5/8 and she walks 1/8. So those are already common denominators. So we just add across, keep the denominator the same, we get 6/8. But what if we simplify? You know, we can divide each by 2 because it is an even number. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 8 divided by 2 is 4. We know she has walked in total 3/4 of a mile. So this is what is the fraction in higher terms, okay? And this is a real easy process you can go ahead and do. You multiply, cross multiply, 3 times 20, and we get 60, and then we bring down 4 and we divide. What is 60 divided by 4? You can do it like this or like that. It's the same thing. 60 divided by 4 is 15. Notice I do 4 times 15, I have 60, I have 0. So remember, 15 0/4 is the same thing as 15. Our answer is 15/20 in higher terms. Okay. Also, if you notice, a different way you could do it is you could say 4 times what equals 20, 4 times 5 equals 20, and then 3 times 5 equals 15. If it's faster to do it that way, you can do it that way too. So it's asking, change the fraction to like fractions. Okay, well, we know how to do this because we know how to factor. So we're going to take 2/5, 9/10. We're going to factor. Well, we know that the smallest can go into the biggest, and those are both divisible by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay, so then we go ahead and cross. 9 times 1, of course, we just get 9/10, and 10 times 1 is 1. But now this is going to change, so let's make us cross here. 2 times 2 is 4. It's 10. So now we have our answer. Okay, 4/10 and 9/10 are in like fractions because they have like denominators. Okay. You can also figure this out. You can say, hey, well, I know that I can multiply times 2 to get here. All right, 5 times 2 to get to 10. Maybe I can use 2 times and multiply 2 there, and you can get 4/10 as well. There's two ways you could do that. Okay, so 65 over 6. What are we going to do in terms of, we've done this before. All we're asking is to do some long division. You're making it an improper into a mixed number. Notice that this is an improper number, okay? And I'm dividing 6 into 65. So 65 divided by 6. Well, I know that it goes into it 10 times. When I multiply, I get 6 times 10, I get 60. Now, I subtract. And I get 5. And I tell you guys to read it like a clock. Start with 10. 5, 6. Okay, now 13 over 6. 6 goes into it 2 times. 6 times 2 is 12. Minus, and then you have 2 minus 12 is 1. So you have 2 and 1, 6. Now we have taken an improper and made it into a mixed number. What about the opposite practice? Opposite operation? How do we make a mixed number, which we're given, into an improper fraction? So the first thing I advise you to do is to do the horseshoe method. And how that works is you have 2 1/5. So you're going to take that 2, multiply it by 5, and you get the answer 10. You bring that 10 and you add it to 1. You have 10 plus 1. You have 11. Now remember, the denominator stays the same. So you have 11/5 as your improper. Now, that's important because sometimes you need to make it improper to do operations. All right. Now it says 11 1/2. What is that in an improper fraction? Well, I'm going to take 11 times 2, which is 22. Then I add it to the top, which is 1. Okay, which I then get 23 over 2. And that is my improper fraction. Adding fractions. Guess what? They are not common denominators. Question is, what do? We factor. Make them common denominators, then you can add. Okay? So, we take 1/3, and we have 2/5, making them the same denominator first. Remember, for adding or subtracting, we have to make common denominators. So, what do? Well, I can't divide anything by 3 or 5. Okay, so I have to use 1. So I bring down the 3, and I bring down the 5. Okay, and then I cross. That means I have to multiply both this side by 3. Okay, and bring that down. Now I have 6 over 2 times 3 is 6, 5 times 3 is 15. Now I have to cross over here too. Times 5 times 5. Okay, 1 times 5 is 5. 3 times 5 is 15. Look at this. Now you have a common denominator. So you're going to take that add, which is the operation, and remember, you keep the denominator the same, and you have 15, and you go over, you have 11 over 15. Okay, and then this is your answer. Great. 3/4 and 1/6. Again, not common denominators. 4 and 6 are not common, so we need to do the same exact process. We're going to take 3/4 and 1/6. But I know I can factor this, guys, because they're both even numbers, so I know I can at least start with 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Then we can cross multiply. Times 1 times 2 and 6 times 2. And we get 2/12. We got to cross multiply the next. Times 3 times 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 3 is 12. Well, great. We got to take this minus, and now we can go across. 9 minus 2, 7. Keep the same. 7/12 is our new fraction. Okay, we can't simplify that anymore. All right, guys. So how do we have 2 4/3 minus 1 2/5? Okay. So the first thing we need to do is make an improper fraction so we can do an operation. So I'm going to have to do the horseshoe method. 2 times 3, which is 6, and add it to 4. Okay. So now I have 6 plus 4. I have 10/3. All right. And then I have minus 1 2/3. I'm going to have to do the same. 5. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 2. And now I have 7/5. Okay. And well, guess what? I'm going to have to factor because they are not common denominators. Well, guess what? I can't do divide 3 or 5 in anything. So I have to use the answer of 1. So 3 divided by 1, 3, and 5 divided by 1 is 5. And then I cross multiply. Okay? Okay, and you get 7 times 3. You get 21/15. And you bring down, now you need to bring, you're going to have to cross with the 5. 10 times 5 is 50. 3 times 5 is 15. Well, we are, make that a little cleaner, 15. Okay? Now, guys, we have common denominators. So we keep the thing across. We got 15. And 50 minus 21, 29. This is an improper fraction. How do we make it back into a mixed number? Good question. We just go ahead and we do long division again. I know 15 only fits into it one time. 15 times 1 is 15. 29 minus 15 is 14. So my answer is 1 14/15. Back in improper. A lot of steps, but we got our answer. What about this one? Again, we got 2 mixed numbers. We got to make them improper. We got to have to do the horseshoe method. 2 times 3, 6. 6 plus 1, 7. And then we have 7/3. 2 times 3 is 6 again. Plus 2 is 8/3. Now hold up. Before we go ahead and try all this factoring, we don't really need to because we have common denominators of 3. So all we really need to do is add across. So again, we keep the denominator, and then we have 15/3. Well, I can factor and all that stuff, but I don't really need to because I know that 15 divided by 3 is 5. So 5 is my answer. And this one was a little bit easier. How do I go ahead and I multiply fractions? 1/8 times 4/5. 1 times 4, 4, 8 times 5. All you're doing is multiplying across. You don't need to factor. You don't have to do anything because it is times. Only add, subtract will you ever need to use factoring. Okay, you might need to factor the answer to simplify, but you do not need to factor to make common denominators. So now we have 1 times 4 is 4. 8 times 5 is 40. Well, we can factor. Does the smallest fit into the biggest? I think it does. So I'm going to divide the bottom and the top by 4. We should get 1 out of 10. And 1 out of 10 is our answer. 1/10. How do I multiply mixed numbers? First, I need to, again, make them into improper fractions. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 plus 1 is 16. 16 over 5. Now we have 1 times 4. And 4 plus 1 is 5 over 4. Up times, we multiply straight across. Okay? 16 times 5 is 80. 5 times 4 is 20. And now this is in division. And just by looking at it, you can probably tell it could be a whole number. Okay? When I do 80 divided by 20, I get 4. Right? And that is our answer. Next one, 3/8 divided by 3/4. Very similar problem that you're going to do. But you take the 3/8 and you change this to and flip that fraction upside down. This goes here, this goes here, they do a flip. And now we have 4/3. Okay? Now, 3 times 4, you multiply across. 3 times 4 is 12. 8 times 3 is 24. Always think that they're both even, so you know you can factor, but what about the smallest? Can it fit into the biggest? Can you divide it by smallest into the biggest? Yes, you can. 12 divided by 12. You have to do the same on the bottom. You get 1 over 2, or 1/2 is your answer. Last question. How do we divide two mixed numbers? Well, again, we got to first make them improper fractions. So you have to do the horseshoe. 4 times 4, 16. 16 plus 1, 17. 17 over 4. We have divided. Okay. Notice I'm dividing. I have 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 1, 7 over 3. Huh. I'm not done yet. I need to keep change and flip that fraction upside down. So I'm going to have to go ahead. Keep this the same, change, and then this becomes 3 over 7. Okay? And when I multiply across, I get 51. I get 28. Now that's an improper fraction. I can make that into a mixed number. So I'm going to take 51, put it in 28. And 28 only goes into it one time. So it is 28. Okay. And once I have 28, I subtract. Okay. 51 minus 28 is 23. Okay, I can do RO, all right, 11, then I have 3 and 4 minus 2 is 2, 23, and now I have 1 and 23, 28. All right, and that should be your last question. If you can do this, you're 100% ready for the test. I have complete faith in you. All right. Do your best. Be careful. Remember all of those rules. Okay.